discuss is what has happened in certain other countries in the past. In America, like in 1960s, there was this huge expansion into the suburbs. And these huge localities were developed by private developers, and because in those, like I said, the invention of sewage treatment plant is very recent, in only in around 1920s or 1926. And so though the private developers in the outside of suburbs of America, and you could say away from the main core towns, they were given these huge plots of lands and they developed into these beautiful areas. But most of them at that time, they resorted to the septic tank system for these houses because of the distances. And so later on in the 80s, there was some study carried out by the US EPA, and they said that one of the major causes of groundwater contamination in the United States was because of the septic tank discharge from cesspools. Cesspools are basically are twin pits, and septic tank, in case they were not properly you could say managed or constructed. And like it refers that though each system releases very small quantity of pollutant, the overall pollution becomes is accumulative, and that becomes contamination. It contaminates sources. So they need to be properly sited, properly designed, and so that these contaminations can be prevented. So after some time, they started retrofitting their septic tank based areas and brought them back into the sewer regimes. So this is what was their experience. And then when I see this and I compare it to our areas, which are much more congested than them, and then we say that if they are to be continue to be based on septic tanks, so we have to take a slight step back and maybe think it very logically, that what is there are options which I'll be discussing in my subsequent slides, that even if we have found that there's a problem with retrofitting sewerage into these areas because of the inconvenience and the cost, then what else could be done about these areas? We'll be discussing that. So again, taking some information from Japan, what we found was that there's a comparison. So there's an inflection point which we could find between, if we see the economics of construction of these sanitation infrastructure, and we go in for individual treatment when each of these structures becomes accumulative, because each household has to pay for this, and the sum total is, it's a flat line. And vis-a-vis, in case we go for a sewered area, so they found that it could be there could be a balance point. And in Japan, maybe the costs are slightly higher. They found that if it was up to 40 residents per hectare, then they could go in for a low population density, and they should go for an individual or a on-site treatment. But if it is above a certain point, then they should go for a then this area-wide treatment becomes more economical, and that is why they should go for this. So now, what is this? Between this, you could say, point, which is the blue area, and the yellow area, there is a, you could say, area which needs to be looked at from the local perspective. So there is a vast area which, or a vast options for densities which we need to look into. So this is one. So one specific query which will always come and which I always raise, and because like I said, there is no final solution for this. So you have to decide for your town what is that economical plus environmental sustainability threshold density for various solutions to be adopted in your town, a combination of various solutions. How do you adopt in your town? And how do we define a small development? Like in case of Japan, they said a small development is 40 persons per hectare. And in our case, we could go in for a certain other figure. So this is something which we need to, you could say, look into, and maybe this still is out in the open, and a definition needs to be fixed for us. Like I said, Japan is 40 persons per hectare, which cannot be corresponded to 4,000 per square kilometer. But let me just, because there are 100 hectares in the square kilometer, so it's fine. In case it's the complete area is filled with people, then it becomes more than, that becomes 4,000 per square kilometer. USA also has got some environmental inflection point. It's not based on the economics, but because of their, you could say, calculations about the pollution cost, they find that if it is more than 16 on-site sewage septic treatment stations per square kilometer, then they call it high density. So if that is high density, or if that corresponds to around 80% per square kilometer in our area, and also they only permit the on-site disposal systems, that is the septic tank systems, in very large property size. But that is America. They have the resources, they have the their own this thing. Then Malaysia, we also try to study what is happening in Malaysia, and we found that almost 70% of their town has got sewage treatment plants, that is sewage treatment systems, and which is taking care of around 70% of their population. And then their on-site systems are basically mostly septic tanks. Then there are some cesspits also, which is also a certain appreciable percentage. But this also adds the rural areas in that country, in Malaysia. And then the small treatment system. Like I said, the sewage treatment system could start from small to medium to large, but the small systems could be almost as you could say as big as the large septic tank. So they have this system on site which is looking after around 30% of their population, and 70% of their population is covered by the sewage treatment system. And like I said, most of the urban areas are covered by sewage treatment system. And what Malaysia says, that if you have a single development over 30 units, that is 150 odd people, then you must go with the sewer reticulation and a treatment plant, must. And in case it is more than 30 units, but the density is less than 5 units per hectare, then you are preferably you should go for a sewer reticulation system. But if you can kind of prove that the terrain and the arrangements are such that it will become very expensive for making sewage treatment, then you can go in for on-site systems, and all these individual systems must be approved as per the design. Now again, this is very important. You can go for on-site system in India also to any density, but they need to be as per the IS code. And just before I started, there was a very nice presentation or a video being played by Jyotsna, in which she showed how a septic tank system should be. So this, if we follow a septic tank system, I'm very certain that we don't have to restrict ourselves to these low densities, and because of the economics, and we can go into for a certain higher densities also in our country. But at above a certain further higher figure, we need to go in for a you could say collection system, sewer collection system, so that the water can be taken to a this thing.